Hello there and welcome to my channel. If you are new here, you're so welcome. Subscribe to the channel and also turn on your notification bell to be updated anytime a content is uploaded on this channel. If you're already a subscriber, welcome back once again. In this video, we are going to learn how to build this simple and basic calculator using VB.NET programming language. But before then, let me just go ahead and demonstrate how this calculator is actually working. So after that, we go ahead and then look at what it takes to build this simple calculator. All right, so when I press maybe 78 plus 2, I expect to get 80 as the output, right? Exactly, that is what we are saying. When I say I want to multiply this by 2, that is supposed to be 160, exactly, right? And I want to divide this by 2, get back to 80, and then maybe plus 2, 82 minus 6, that is kind of 76, right? Then maybe I can say 76.3 plus 2, right? Do this, I get 78 plus 3. So you could see that everything is essentially working. I can go ahead and actually delete the stars on the screen one after the other, or better yet, if I want to get rid of all the figures on the screen at a go, I can just hit on this AC button and everything is just off like that. And when I click on this back arrow here, or the less than arrow here, it is supposed to terminate the application. All right here, so as you can see, the application is terminated, and that is basically how this calculator is working. Are you excited? Let's go and learn how to create it from scratch. All right, so I'm going to close this project here, close the solution, and then we are going to create a new project. You have to have Visual Studio installed. Okay, Visual Studio. You can go to their official website or look it up on Google, and then make sure you download and install Visual Studio on your computer. All right, so let me say the language would be Visual Basic here. The platform, I want it to be Windows, and also the project type, I want it to be on desktop. So now I would have a refined list, and then I'll look for Windows service, Windows.NET here, this one. Okay, yeah, no, so this one here, Windows Form app, it's a bracket.NET framework. So having selected that, I'll just hit on next, and then I'll say calculator, give the name of the project as calculator, let's say app, and just make everything as default, leave it as default, and then just hit on create. So now our project is created successfully for us. Okay, good. We need to resize the form to look how we want it. So let me just try and hold the edges of this form from the right side, and then maybe something like so will be okay. All right, now you could see that the first one was having no form controls or form border style and all that. It was just a sleek, nice design like that. I was actually using a GUNA UI framework. By default, it is not part of Visual Studio. So when you look through the toolbox, all the controls that are available, there is nothing like GUNA in it. So when I go, for instance, and search maybe a button, I only see the default button that Microsoft provides, or the VB.NET framework provides. Okay, all right, so we have to actually add it as a third party to our project. All right, we have to add it as a third party framework or library to our project. How do we do that? Just right click on the name of your project from the Solution Explorer. Okay, right click on it, and then say manage NuGet package, like so, and then you'll be brought to this page here. you see that by default, the tab that is selected is installed. I'm not interested in that. I'll go to the browse, and those will help me to talk to APIs. Frameworks that are situated on the internet. So make sure you are connected to the internet before you come to this section here. So here, I'm just going to search GUNA UI in the search bar here, and then make sure I select the first one, GUNA UI 2.WinForms, this one here. And then once I select that, I'll just hit install from here and accept, or click on OK, and then finally accept the license agreement, and then wait for some few seconds. You could see that now the GUNA framework is now added to my project. So when I expand the references option here, you see that there's a GUNA framework or library that has been added to our project. Okay, good. So now let me close this one here. And now when I say that I go back to the toolbox, you see that on top of the all Windows forms, there is a GUNA UI 2.WinForms option that has been added to what was already there. Yes. Now when we expand this, we are going to see a whole lot of controls that we can work with. Whole lot of controls. Is that okay? All right. So before then, let me just do one thing. I'm going to select the form, go to the properties window, and say that I want this form whenever it starts. Okay, make sure you are on the alphabetical tab, sort it alphabetically. When you have it categorized, this is what you're going to be seeing. I don't really like this one, so make sure your properties are sorted alphabetically. So I want whenever this form starts, okay, let me demonstrate something to you first. So I'll start debugging this application by hitting on the start here. You will see where the form will be positioned. You see where the form will be positioned. Okay, I'm a few minutes away. Okay, it has not finished debugging. Okay, so you see where the form has appeared. Just here, we don't want that. We want whenever this form starts, it should be at the center of the screen like that. Okay, the center of the screen. So we have what we call start position. Make sure you select the form and then look for the start position property and change it to center screen, and you are good to go. So when you do that, when you start the application or debug it again, you see that the form will just be right in the middle of the screen. Okay, yes, you can see that now the form is just right in the middle of the screen like that. All right, good. So let me stop it. Now I'm going to take away this border style here. The form border style, which is having the controls and all that. I don't want it. So I'm going to look for something called ellipse. So GUNA 2 ellipse, that is what we want. So when I drop it on the form, this is what has appeared here. When I select it, okay, now this is just a simple note trying to tell you that you should activate the product or the GUNA framework. We will do that later. If you can afford, just go ahead and then request for the license key and all that. Okay, yes, but for this tutorial I'm just going to cancel it and we will be able to work with it fine. Okay, all right, so select the property down here, and then you see or the control that we drag, which is the GUNA ellipse. Select it, and then you see the properties that are associated with that control. There is one that I'm so particular about, that is a target control. So the target control is the control that this control here is going to target. So a control targeting another control. Right, good. So I'll drop this one down here, select it, and say it should target from 1, and immediately you can see that the border style is now looking different. Yeah, so we are getting somewhere. Now select that control again, which is the GUNA ellipse down here, and then say that the border radius, I want to shift it to like maybe 20 is less. Okay, still less. Let me say 30. And you can see that the more I increase the border radius, the edges of this form becoming round like that. Okay, good. All right, now let me look for one more control called drag control and drop it on the form like so. Make sure I select that one, and the target control should also be form 1. And this is what it's going to do, is that it will help us to be able to drag around the control or the form. Okay, okay, all right, so you can see that I'm able to move the form around. Had it not been that, when I move it, it won't work. Okay, because we took the default ones away. If I had not done this, when you try and drag the form around, it will never work. All right, good. Now let me select the form again once, and then change the font size of this form to like 14. And this is definitely going to distort the size of the form. Yes, good. Now what will happen is that whenever we drag and drop any control on this form, it will assume the font size 14 by default. You get it? All right, and that's basically what I want to achieve. Okay, now I want a panel. Okay, I want a panel which is going to have that section where the numbers are going to be, and another panel where we have, the displaying of what's the result. Okay, so I'm going to use panel, so just say panel. So you can take GUNA UI panel, then just drop it. And this panel, I'm going to dock it to the top. So make sure the panel is selected and look for a property called dock, this one here, and then say drop it and say dock to the top. So you can see it is just there like that. Now I'm going to sample a certain color, and that's what we are going to be using. All right, I'm going to sample a certain color. Wait for me, be with you. Okay, so all right, so let me use this color here. So I'll target the background color or the back color. Yes, back color, and then just paste this color code here. I'll try, and then let me see what I can do with this. Let me just include one label here, label, and then change the text property of this label to the color code so you can put it down. Yeah, so this is the color code. Right, you can keep it down. All right, now I also need another panel. Okay, I also need another panel. So search for panel from the toolbox. GUNA UI panel, and this one I'm going to dock it to the bottom. So select the dock here and then dock it to the bottom, and then increase the height to about this section here. All right, so I think by now I can delete the color code, drag it a bit, and then make sure I drag this one to also meet this here. Okay, now I'm going to change also the background color of this one. So let me just go and pick the color that I want. Okay, picking the color that I want, and I'll change the back color from control to this exactly. So we are making a headway, or we are getting somewhere. And likewise for this one, so let me just show you the color code that I just used. So I'll change the text property to the color, and then make sure this color is white. Yeah, so this is the color code I use for this part here. Okay, so you can take note of that, pause the video, and then just get the color code. Okay, all right, now we need the controls or the numbers. All right, we need the controls or the numbers, but first of all, let's get to implement where we'll be seeing our results. So I want what we call a text box. text box and then place it on this panel here, and then I'm just going to increase the size of this text box to like 30. Select the text box and select its font property, change this one to like 30, and say I want to increase the size. This one here, I think 30 is still not enough, maybe 60 would do. Yeah, and then I would also want to have the edges rounded, so I'm going to search for a property called border radius. Border radius. Border radius. Can I see that? Okay. All right, so I'm not really saying that property, border radius. Let me look at something right now. GUNA UI text box. Okay. Okay, so what I'll do is that let me delete this one, and this one I can see the border radius here. Let me increase it to like maybe a 30. Okay, now I can go ahead and change the font size to the 50 that I actually did, and this has taken away the control from the document flow. Try and then bring it back. Okay, like so, and okay, this is what we are having now. Let me just increase the width a bit. Okay, so this is kind of okay now. All right, good. Now let me drop a label on this form and say that have the title, change the color to white, change the text property of this label to calculator. I didn't spell that well. All right, so calculator, and change the font size to maybe like 16, maybe a 20, and then the bold property should be set to true. And I can now reduce this one a bit here. Yeah. All right, so I think we are getting somewhere. Let's run the project, click on start, and see what we are doing so far. Okay, so this is where we have gotten so far. Right now I want to set this one here to not allow inputs. Okay, to not allow inputs, and then I also want to get the text from the right hand side instead of the left. So I'll select it and then say that text align. Okay, text align property, I'll say right, and also I'll set it to read only. So read only, that's a property called read only here. I'll set it to what? True. All right, and when I start the application again, you can see that now the cursor is blinking at the right hand side like that. Okay, now let's add some few controls, which are the numbers, and then from there we can move ahead to look at our logical part. So we need a lot of buttons, so I'm just going to search for button here, and what I'm interested in is what? GUNA UI button, this one here like that. Okay, good. Now I'm going to adjust or modify this button a bit. I'm going to change the text on this one to maybe a 7. Okay, and then the font size I want it to be like maybe a 16, and then the bold, set it to true. I think 18 would do. All right, 18 would do. Now I'm going to squeeze this one a little, and then have something like so. I'm going to change the back or the fill color to take the color code of this particular one here. All right, okay, I mean the panel, the background. So I'm going to change that to this color here. Yes, okay, that is exactly what I want. Now I'm going to duplicate this one a few times, so you can just hold down the control whilst you drag to the right, and also another one. Okay, I think there is not even distribution, and should be another one like that. Okay, so let me try. See that this one should be right here, then this one should be somewhere here. I think it's okay, right? Good. So you can have time and then design the form as to how you want it. All right, so I'm just going to change this one to 8. Select the text property of this one to 8, and then because the text property is the last thing I changed, when I select the next one, I can just go ahead and say 9, and I wouldn't have any problem. It will just activate the text property for me right away. So here I want this one to be a symbol for the multiplication, like that. And this one, let me get rid of this so I can have enough space to work with. So come here, and then this one should be somewhere here. Okay, so the spaces are too wide. Okay, I think this is okay. So 7, 8. Okay, so let me change the text property of this one to 8. 7, 8, 9, and then the multiplication symbol. So what I'm going to do is just select all of this and then hold down the control whilst I drag down to get the other set, like so. Change this one to maybe 4. All right, so let me change this one to the text property to 4. I think 5, and then 6. All right, and this will be minus. Then let me just select all of them again, and then you can just right click and also say copy and paste. Okay, paste. To do the same thing for you. So let me change this one to a 1. Okay, so change the text property to a 1, 2, 3, and this one, let's use plus for this. Then let's have another set. Okay, let's have another set like so, where we are going to have the back button that I showed you earlier, like so. We have our 0, and then we have our dots, and then we have our equal sign, equal, like so. All right, now you could see that there is not enough spacing, so let me hold this one and bring it down a bit. I think this is okay. Do likewise for this ones, and do likewise for these ones as well. Okay, so I think this is kind of okay. Now on top of this numbers, I'm just going to have few controls. That is the division. I want the division to be here, and I want my clear button should also be there, C, and then this one will be the AC, like so. Then just delete this one. Oh, so actually I didn't copy the other one, so it has actually deleted the 7, 8, and 9 thing. So let me just quickly get it back. Okay, I think this is okay. All right, let me make sure there is even distribution of the spaces. All right, so I think this is kind of okay now. We change this one to 7, 8, 9, and then we actually use the multiplication for this. All right, now let's test it. Let's run it again and see what we are doing so far. All right, so you can see that we are making headway. All right, that is great. That's great. That's great. That's great. Great. Good. Now let's go ahead and name our controls. Naming the controls, I mean, when we go to the code base where we are going to write our functionalities, we should be able to make reference to these controls easily, and so therefore we need to give them names that we are familiar with. Okay, so this one, I'm just going to say that select it, this AC, and then look for a property called name here. It is normally at the top here, and say that I want this one to be btn clear all, and then this one will be btn clear. All right, this one I'll say it to be btn divide, and this one will be btn 7. This one will be btn 8. This one will be btn 9. This one will be btn multiply, btn 4, and then btn 5, btn 6, btn minus, btn 1, and then btn 2, btn 3, and then btn plus, btn cancel, btn, let's say cancel, and then btn 0, and then btn dot, like so, and then btn equal. All right, so we are done with naming the controls. Now the one that will be displaying our output, so we need to name it. So let's say we target this one and say txt display, or txt display or result. You can say txt result or txt display. Now you see that I'm following a particular naming convention. Because this one is a text box, I proceeded with what txt, and these ones are buttons. I just said btn, and then whatever I need to describe it, I just go ahead and do that. All right, now the first thing that I want us to do is to implement the cancel. Okay, this one here. So I'm just going to double click on it, to assign the click event to it. Double click on it like so, and then it will assign what we call the click events to it. So whenever this one is clicked, I just want to say application dot exit, and this is actually going to terminate the application. So let's run it and see what it is actually doing. All right, so when I click on this, any of the buttons here, you can see that they are non-functional at the moment. All right, they are all non-functional at the moment, but immediately I hit on this, it closes the application. Yes, and that is that for the cancel. We are through with that. All right, now let's go ahead and say that when you click on any of these buttons, it should have it displayed in this text box for us. So now there are better approaches to do whatever I'm going to do. All right, but I'm just trying to stay simple for now. In subsequent videos, we'll look at how to better the codes that I'm going to write here. So please be aware of that. All right, so let me just click on this 7. So whenever this 7 is clicked, okay, the button 7 is clicked, I'm just going to say that check if there is already a result or a text displayed, or let's say input displayed. If not, just go ahead, displayed, and append the 7. Else just go ahead and display, else display 7. All right, display 7. So that is what is going to be happening in the subsequent one. So I'll just say that if txt display dot text equals to empty, all right, if it is empty, then I can go ahead and say that txt display dot text should now be equal to btn 7 dot text. All right, else, okay, else say that txt display dot text plus equal to btn 7 dot text, and this will append to the existing inputs. All right, this will append a 7 to the existing input, and this will check if it is empty to just display that 7 in the text box. Let me go ahead and test it and so that you see exactly what I mean. So when I click on 7, you see 7 is now displayed here. Now when I click again, it checks if there is already an input, which is what, the 7. If it is there, it will append to it, and we have something like so 77, like that. You get it? Good. So let me close this one here. All right, now let's go and then do for the rest. So let me copy this code here first and then click on 8, do likewise, and then change this one to btn 8, right? btn 8, change to btn 8. All right, I'll do for btn 9, click on it, double click on it, paste the code that we copied, change this one to btn 9, btn 9. Okay, let's do for the, okay, we will not do that yet. Let me go back and do for 4 and paste the code and say that btn 4, btn 4, btn 4, like that. Paste the code, change it to btn 5, btn 5, btn 6, btn 6, btn6, that's a btn1, 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 like that. Let's do for btn2, double click on it, paste the code, change this part to btn2, btn2, change this section to also btn2, and change this part to btn3, 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 like that. And then let's do for the btn0, 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 like that. Let's do for the btn dot, btn dot. Okay, so for the btn dots, there is something slightly going to change. Okay, so what I'm going to do is that I'll say if this one here, the display here is empty, I'm just going to say that, okay, just append a dot. So I'm just going to say that, just go ahead and say that if it is empty, just say add 0 and then dots, like so for us. Very good. Okay, then that is it. And then I'll say that else if txt display dot contains the text, okay, that contains a dot like so, then just go ahead and say that exit sub, because we don't want to have multiple dots in our operation. Normally we only see one dot at a time. Do you get it? Good. So if the text display is empty, just proceed with what? A 0 and a dot for us. Else if this one is actually having this already, go ahead and say that don't do anything, just exit from the sub. Then we can have finally an else part where we say that else, just say txt display dot text should append the 0. Okay, should append the 0, I mean the dots. So I'll say btn dot text, like so. So let's test all that you've done so far, and we'll come back to tackle the rest. So whenever I click 7, 8, 9, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 0. Okay, so when I hit on dots, the dot is now there, and 2, you can see that it is actually working like that. All right, now when I hit on dot again, it is not functioning, because we said that whenever it checks and then there is a dot already in the input, it should not allow for a further dot. All right, so let me cancel this one. So we implement this here, the clear all button. So just double click on it and say that txt display dot clear, and that would do the magic for us. And for the cancel or the clear button, the single character, I mean the single input clearing, let's double click on it. Let's do some few checks. So I'll say that if txt display dot text is equal to empty, then just exit sub, so that it will not trigger the function and then our program might run into an error. All right, so let's first check if it is empty. Just exit up, don't do anything at all. Else let's do what we call let's say we want to pick txt display.text and now set it to what we call a mid function. Now this function takes what we call the string that's, or the text that we want to actually delete the characters, or the input that we want to delete the characters from one after the other. All right, so let me just implement it so you see how it is working. So I'll supply txt display.text and then I'll say comma. Now we want to use what we call one based indexing. Okay, we have what we call zero based indexing, so I'll just pass in one here, and this mid function is working more or less like an array. Okay, so it is checking the entirety of what is currently displayed and take it as an array and then delete the element one after the other. So when I say one, it is going to delete from the right hand side like that, and then I'll say comma again. Now I'll say txt display.text.length -1. so whilst you're deleting, just be subtracting 1 from the length of the current input like that for us. Is that okay? Good. Okay, now let me do something back here. The display, first of all, I have to check if the txt display.text is equal to empty. All right, like so, before I go ahead and say that clear, else our program might just terminate unexpectedly. All right, good. Okay, so we are making a headway. Now let's go ahead and tackle the various operators. Okay, let's tackle the various operators. So I'm just going to double click on the division first here and say that before then, let me define a variable at the top of the program here. Say that, say variables, say dim operator, and then what again do I need? Dim operator. And why am I getting error? So dim operator. Okay, end of statement expected. A string, let me say string and see. No, there is something up. Dim opr, like so. No, this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is that, let me check something very well. opr. Okay, so what's happening is that I want to have a variable that we are going to use to store the operator that are actually selected, but the operator is a keyword in the VB.NET programming language, and that's how come it was flagging, right? So let me just shorten it and say opera. Okay, so operator like that. Okay, now let's go back to our division here and say that let's set the operator should be equal to the OPR that we define at the top here should now be equal to this one here. Okay, now before then let's do this. Let's have a variable that whenever this one is checked or the division sign is pressed, we check if txt display.text is not equal to empty or is empty, then we can just exit sub let's not do nothing. Let's just do nothing. Else we go ahead and say that the operator should now be equal to this. Okay, and while the operator is equal to that, we need to have one more variable that is going to hold the first value that the user entered. So let's say that beam let's say first input like that, and then come back to the code and say that first input should now be equal to txt display.text like that. And what I'm going to do is just to grab all of this and say it should be a value, and then just paste this one here because it is going to receive it as a text. And if we don't convert it into a value, when we do the operations, we are not going to get the expected output. Now after we've done that, let's just set the txt display now a text. Let's just set it to what? An empty string like that. All right, so I'm just going to copy this code here, the entirety of this one here, and let's do for the rest. So this one is a multiplication. Change this one to asterisk, and then do for the minus. Do for minus like so, and then do for plus. Do for plus, and I think that is essentially all. Now when we click on equals, okay, that is where we have to perform the computation. All right, we need to perform the computation. So let's just click on this, and what we are going to do is that we are going to say if txt display, right? Txt display dot text is not equal to empty something like that, or is equal to empty, let's just say exit stub. Else we go ahead and say that select case. Okay, select case. Then we want to check the operator that was selected, and now we are going to say that in case it is a division sign like so, in case it is that, we are going to say that txt display dot text should now be equal to first input, okay, divided by, then I'll say value. Okay, I'll say var txt display dot text like so. So this is essentially going to say that, okay, now whenever this equal button is clicked, check if the operator that the user selected previously was a division sign, then just say that now set the display property of this control here to the computation that we are going to receive from here. So this one already we converted into a value, right? Okay, now we also want to convert the current text that is there also into a value, and then divide it like that. So let's test it out. Let's test it and see if it is actually working. Let's test it and see if it is actually working. So let's say 4 divided by 2, and we are supposed to get the 2 as the output, right? Let me make it more obvious. Say a 10 divided by 2, we are supposed to get 5, right? Yes, so it is working as intended. Okay, I think this button here is not working. So the clear So I said if it is empty, just do this. Okay, so this is a mistake. So I say exit sub, then else just go ahead and say that txt display dot clear, and this is going to clear all the stuffs there. All right, so now let's go back and continue our logics for the equal operation. So let's repeat this part and say that in case it is what, a multiplication, like so, I'm going to change this part here to multiplication, paste it again and say if it is plus, change this place to a plus for us, and if it is a minus, change the operation to minus for us. And I think these are all the operators that we have on our calculator at the moment. So 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, yes. So let's go ahead and test this calculator finally with all the operators and see what we've done so far. So 78 plus 2, and that is an 80, minus 6, 74, and then let's say that plus 3 is 77, right? So dot 3 plus 2, 79.3. okay, so that is working. Let me just clear all and we are good to go. I'll say maybe 14 times 2, that is 28. All right, divided by, let's say 2 back to 14. And when I delete, let's say, let me add more figures and then delete this one, it will delete one after the other like that. And even that, there is nothing there. When you click on it, nothing happens. And for the dots, we said that whenever there is nothing displayed here and we click on it, it should just append this 0 for us like that, and you can go ahead and say 0.6 plus 2, that is 2.6 actually. Yes, and that is it for this tutorial. I hope you like it. If you really enjoyed it, hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel if you've not done that yet, and leave your thoughts in the comment section. They mean so much to me, and I hope I'll see you in another one. Thanks for watching.